The lecture hall buzzed with the strange sounds of 50 different alien species trying to settle into their seats. Lihana sat in the third row, her data tablet ready, her attention fixed on the enormous holographic display at the front of the room. She had been on Galactic Academy Station Theta 7 for 6 months now, and she still felt a thrill every time she walked into this xenobiology classroom. The room itself was a marvel, designed to accommodate species that breathed different atmospheres, stood at different heights, and perceived reality through senses humans didn't even possess. Professor Vextil entered through the main door, his crystalline body catching the light and scattering it across the walls in rainbow patterns. He was Kurathi, a species that resembled living gemstones shaped roughly like humans but standing nearly 8 feet tall. His people were famous throughout the galaxy as the ultimate predators, the enforcers, the military elite. For 300 years, Kurathi soldiers had protected the Galactic Union from pirates, hostile species, and cosmic threats. Today, Professor Vextil announced, his voice resonating through the translation devices everyone wore. We discussed the concept of the apex predator. He touched his console and the holographic display filled with images of creatures from dozens of worlds. There were things with too many teeth, things with armored hides, things that seemed to be made of pure muscle and rage. Hana leaned forward. This was her favorite topic. Back on Earth, she had grown up reading about lions, wolves, bears, and sharks. She had spent her childhood on a colony world, where the local ecosystem still had wild predators that needed to be understood and respected. The apex predator, the professor continued, sits at the top of its food chain. It has no natural enemies. It is the ultimate expression of evolutionary success in its environment. He gestured at the display. However, when we examine the truly superior apex predators across the galaxy, one species stands above all others. The display shifted. Now it showed a Kurathi in hunting posture. My species, Vextil said with unmistakable pride, represents the pinnacle of predatory evolution. Our reaction time is 0.03 seconds faster than any other sentient species in the Union. Our strength-to-weight ratio allows us to lift 15 times our body mass. Our sensory organs can detect thermal signatures, electromagnetic fields, and chemical traces simultaneously. We do not merely hunt, we dominate. The professor pulled up comparison charts. Hana saw species names she recognized. The four-armed Kreshti, the tank-like Borduum, the lightning-fast Zephyli. In every category, the Kurathi numbers topped the charts. Speed, strength, senses, endurance. The crystalline giants excelled at everything. In fact, Vextil said, turning to face the class, I would argue that the Kurathi are not merely apex predators of our homeworld, but the apex predators of the known galaxy. No species can match our capabilities. Hana's hand went up before she could stop herself. She immediately regretted it as Professor Vextil's faceted eyes focused on her like targeting lasers. Yes, Miss Lee? He said. Do you have a question? Not exactly a question, Professor, Hana said, keeping her voice steady. More of a respectful disagreement. The room went silent. A Borduum student in the back row made a sound like grinding rocks, which her translator interpreted as nervous laughter. Nobody disagreed with Professor Vextil. The man wasn't just a teacher. He was a decorated former military commander who had led Kurathi forces in actual combat situations. How fascinating, the professor said, and Hana couldn't tell if he was amused or offended. Please enlighten us. Which species do you believe could possibly match Kurathi capabilities? Humans, Hana said simply. The laughter started immediately. It came from all corners of the room, a bizarre symphony of alien amusement. The Kreshti student next to her slapped the desk with 2 of her 4 hands. A methane-breathing Voss in the environmental suit made a wheezing sound that her translator assured her was hilarious cackling. Professor Vextil held up one crystalline hand and the laughter stopped. Miss Lee, he said, and now she could definitely hear condescension in his voice. I mean no disrespect to your species. Humans are certainly adequate. You have integrated into the Galactic Union remarkably well for a species so young to space travel. However, let us examine the facts. He pulled up a new comparison chart. Human statistics appeared next to Kurathi numbers. The differences were embarrassing. Humans were slower, weaker, had inferior senses. Even their teeth were laughably small compared to the crystalline fangs that Kurathi could extend from their mouths. You have no natural armor, the professor continued. Your reaction times are mediocre. Your strength is barely adequate for your size. You are pursuit predators at best, lacking the burst speed necessary for effective hunting. You evolved on a relatively peaceful world with no significant apex predator competition. He paused. And perhaps most tellingly, you have those soft, easily damaged bodies. No scales, no exoskeleton, no crystalline structure, just fragile skin, more laughter. Hana felt her face getting hot, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Professor," she said, "I think the measurements you're using don't capture the full picture of what makes a true apex predator." "Oh?" Vextil tilted his head. "And what have I missed, Miss Lee? Perhaps humans have some secret capability that has escaped the notice of galactic xenobiologists for the past 20 years. Hana stood up. She knew she was about to do something either very brave or very stupid. "Give me 1 week, Professor. I'll bring something to class that will prove my point. Something that will demonstrate why your assessment of apex predators is fundamentally incomplete." The professor's crystalline face somehow managed to convey a smile. "You wish to bring evidence? Physical evidence?" "Yes, sir." "From Earth?" "Very well," Professor Vextil said. He tapped his console. "I am officially logging this as an academic demonstration. 1 week from today, Miss Lee will present her evidence regarding human apex predator capabilities." He looked around the room. "I am opening this demonstration to the entire xenobiology department. I encourage all faculty and students to attend." Hana's stomach dropped. This was supposed to be a simple class discussion, not a department-wide event, but she couldn't back down now. "I'll be here, Professor," she said. "I look forward to it," Vextil replied. Class dismissed. As the other students filed out, many of them glanced at Hana with expressions she couldn't quite read. Pity, curiosity? Amusement? She gathered her things slowly, her mind already racing through possibilities. What could she bring that would make these aliens understand? The last student to leave was a Kreshti who paused at the door. "Human girl," she said through her translator, "I hope you know what you're doing. The professor does not like being challenged. He will make an example of you." Then Hana was alone in the empty lecture hall, staring at the holographic display that still showed the comparison between human and Karathi capabilities. The numbers looked bad, but numbers didn't tell the whole story. She pulled out her personal communicator and started composing a message to Earth. She knew exactly what she needed to bring to class. The question was whether she could get it here in time, and whether anyone would understand what it represented. 1 week. She had 1 week to challenge 300 years of Karathi supremacy and make the entire Galactic Academy understand something about humanity that nobody had bothered to notice yet. Hana smiled. This was going to be interesting. Kang Minho was waiting outside their shared quarters when Hana returned from class. He took one look at her face and groaned. "What did you do?" "Nothing terrible," Hana said, pressing her palm to the door scanner. "I just challenged the entire xenobiology department to a demonstration about apex predators." "You what?" Minho followed her inside, nearly tripping over the environmental control unit they had installed to keep their quarters at Earth normal temperature and humidity. Most of the station was too cold for human comfort. "Hana, Professor Vextil was a military commander. He once fought off a pack of Kreshti pirates single-handedly. You can't just—" "I already did," Hana interrupted, dropping onto the couch and pulling up her communicator. "And now I need your help getting transport permits for biological material from Earth." Minho sat down across from her, his expression somewhere between concern and disbelief. "Biological material? What are you planning to bring? A tiger? A bear? Because I hate to break it to you, but the Karathi hunt things that make Earth predators look like house cats." "Not a tiger," Hana said, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Something better. Better than a tiger." Minho leaned forward. "Hana, what could possibly impress these aliens? They've seen predators from 40 different worlds. The Borduum have these things called Gren beasts that weigh 3 tons and have acid for blood. The Kreshti homeworld has flying hunters with electromagnetic abilities. What does Earth have that they haven't already?" "Trust me," Hana said, not looking up from her communicator. "I know what I'm doing," Minho sighed. He had known Hana since they both arrived at the academy 6 months ago, assigned as roommates because the station preferred to group humans together during the adjustment period. In that time, he had learned that when Hana got that particular look in her eyes, arguing was pointless. "Fine, what do you need?" Access to the biotransport authorization system. I need to file for a living creature transfer from Earth to the station. It's technically allowed for academic purposes, but the paperwork is complicated. How complicated? About 40 forms complicated. Health certificates, containment protocols, species declarations, environmental impact assessments. Hana trailed off, scrolling through the requirements. And it needs to be approved by both Earth authorities and station administration. That could take weeks, Minho pointed out. You have 7 days. Then we better start now. For the next 3 hours, they worked through the bureaucratic maze together. Minho, who had a gift for navigating administrative systems, found shortcuts and priority channels that Hana didn't even know existed. He also had connections with the human diplomatic office on the station, and he shamelessly called in favors to speed up the approval process. It was nearly midnight station time when Hana finally submitted the last form. Done, she said, leaning back and closing her eyes. Now we wait. Are you going to tell me what you requested? Minho asked. You'll see when it arrives. Hana, trust me, Minho, please. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I trust you. But if this goes badly, if you get humiliated in front of the entire department, I'm going to say I told you so. Fair enough. The next 3 days were tense. Hana attended her classes, but she could feel the other students watching her. Word had spread throughout the academy about her challenge. Some students seemed curious, others amused, and a few actually seemed to be rooting for her. A Voss student named something that translated as Hollowind gave her an encouraging gesture with its environmental suit's manipulator arms. Professor Bextel said nothing about the upcoming demonstration, but his crystalline eyes followed Hana during every lecture. She had the uncomfortable feeling that he was disappointed in her. He had seemed to respect her work before this incident. Now she had made herself look either arrogant or foolish, probably both. On the 4th day, Hana's communicator chimed with an incoming message. The transport had been approved. Arrival time 18 hours. Minho was in the station library when she found him. It's coming, she said simply. Whatever it is, he replied, but he smiled. Do you need help with anything? Just moral support when I pick it up from the docking bay. The next morning, they stood together in docking bay 7, watching through the observation window as a specialized biotransport pod went through decontamination procedures. The pod was small, barely larger than a closet, with biometric displays showing that its occupant was healthy and comfortable. That's a small container for a tiger, Minho said nervously. I told you, not a tiger. The decontamination cycle completed. A station worker, a 6-limbed Kreshti, operated the release mechanism. The pod's door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Out stepped a dog. Not a massive wolf or a dangerous predator. Just a dog. A beautiful Siberian husky with thick gray and white fur, pointed ears and striking blue eyes. The dog looked around the docking bay with calm interest, then sat politely as if waiting for instruction. Minho stared. You brought a pet. His name is Baram, Hana said, moving toward the clearance door. It means wind in Korean. I know what it means, Hana. I'm Korean too. Minho grabbed her arm. But seriously, you brought a dog? A domesticated animal? To prove that humans are apex predators? The clearance light turned green. Hana pulled open the door and walked into the bay. Baram's ears perked up immediately. His tail started wagging, and when Hana knelt down, he walked over to her with obvious joy. She scratched behind his ears and checked him over, making sure the journey hadn't stressed him too badly. He's perfect, she murmured. Hana, Minho said, following her into the bay. I don't understand. How is a dog supposed to impress the Korathi? They hunt megafauna for sport. This is just... It's a friendly dog. Hana stood up, Baram's leash in her hand. The dog stood calmly at her side, looking up at her with complete trust and attention. That's exactly the point, she said. They think apex predators are about individual strength and speed. They think it's about teeth and claws and armor, but they're missing something fundamental about how Earth's true apex predator operates. Which is? You'll see at the demonstration. She started walking toward the exit, Baram trotting happily beside her. But I'll give you a hint. Humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth because we were the strongest or the fastest. We became dominant because we did something no other apex predator in the galaxy has ever managed. Minho fell into step beside her. And what's that? We built a family. They walked through the station corridors, and Hana noticed how other beings reacted to Baram. Some gave the dog a wide berth, their alien instincts recognizing a predator despite his friendly demeanor. Others seemed curious, especially the species that had never seen an Earth canine before. A small Zephyli actually backed into a wall, its translator expressing surprise at encountering an unexpected creature. Back in their quarters, Hana set up a comfortable space for Baram. She had ordered special food that would work with his digestive system, and she spent time re-establishing their bond after the separation. Baram was a working dog from a breeding line that went back centuries, trained for cooperation and partnership. Over the next 2 days, Hana took Baram to the station's recreation areas, letting him exercise and adjust to the lower gravity. Minho came along, gradually understanding that this wasn't just a pet. This was a trained partner with capabilities that weren't immediately obvious. "Watch," Hana said during one session. She pointed at a container across the room. "Baram, fetch." The dog immediately ran to the container, picked it up gently in his mouth, and brought it back to Hana. He dropped it at her feet and sat, waiting for the next command. "Okay, that's impressive obedience training," Minho admitted. "But now watch this." Hana walked away from Baram and pretended to be hurt, letting out a small cry of pain and dropping to one knee. The change in Baram was instant. His ears went back, his body tensed, and he rushed to Hana's side. He positioned himself between her and the rest of the room, his friendly demeanor replaced by something alert and protective. When Minho took a step forward, Baram let out a low warning sound that made the hair on the back of Minho's neck stand up. "It's okay, Baram," Hana said, standing up and petting him. "Good boy. Everything's fine." The dog relaxed immediately, his tail wagging again as if nothing had happened. Minho stared. "He was ready to protect you." "Against anything," Hana confirmed. "That's what 40,000 years of partnership looks like." "He's not my pet, Minho, he's my pack member. And I'm his." Understanding began to dawn in Minho's eyes. "The demonstration isn't about what Baram can do alone." "No," Hana agreed. "It's about what we can do together. And more importantly, it's about why that matters." 3 days until the demonstration. Word had spread throughout the station that the human had brought an animal. The mockery was intense. Students made jokes about bringing pets to prove scientific points. Someone started a betting pool on how badly the presentation would go, but Hana didn't care. She spent her time with Baram, preparing for what she needed to show. She rehearsed her presentation, checked her data, and made sure every fact was accurate. On the night before the demonstration, Minho found her sitting in the common area with Baram's head resting on her lap. "You ready?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Hana replied. "Tomorrow I either change how they see humanity, or I become the biggest joke in Academy history." "For what it's worth," Minho said, "I think I'm starting to understand what you're doing, and I think it's brilliant." Hana smiled. "Thanks, that means a lot." Baram looked up at her and made a small, contented sound. In his eyes, she saw the product of thousands of generations of cooperation, trust, and mutual benefit. Tomorrow she would show the galaxy what that meant. Tomorrow she would prove that being Apex had nothing to do with being alone. The lecture hall was packed. Hana stood in the preparation room behind the main stage, listening to the sounds of dozens of alien species settling into their seats. Through the small window in the door, she could see that every seat was filled and beings were standing in the back. This wasn't just the xenobiology department anymore. The entire station seemed to have heard about the human who thought she could challenge Korathi supremacy with a pet. Baram sat beside her, calm and alert. She had brushed his fur until it gleamed under the station's lights. He wore a specialized harness with translation-compatible sensors that would allow her to display his vital signs during the presentation. The dog looked up at her with those striking blue eyes, completely trusting. "You ready, boy?" she whispered, scratching behind his ears. His tail wagged once. That was enough. Minho poked his head through the door. "They're about to start. Professor Bextil just arrived with 3 other Korathi. 2 of them are wearing military insignia." Hana's stomach flipped. Military observers. This was officially way bigger than she had expected. "Okay," she said, standing up. "Let's do this." "You've got this," Minho said, giving her an encouraging nod. "Go show them what Earth is really about." The door opened and Hana walked into the lecture hall with Baram at her side. The conversation noise dropped immediately as hundreds of alien eyes focused on her and the dog. She heard someone make a sound that her translator interpreted as, "That's it? That's what she brought?" followed by ripples of laughter. Professor Vextil stood at the front of the room, his crystalline form catching the light. Next to him were 3 other Korathi, each decorated with military honors that even Hana could recognize. One of them looked particularly imposing, with darker crystal formations that suggested age and experience. "Miss Lee," Professor Vextil said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "Welcome. I believe you have a demonstration prepared for us." "Yes, Professor," Hana said, walking to the presentation area. Baram moved perfectly with her, matching her pace. "Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. Before we begin," the dark crystalled Korathi said, his voice like rocks grinding together, "I am Commander Thex of the Korathi Defense Forces. I am here because Professor Vextil suggested this presentation might have military implications. I confess I am skeptical." Several beings in the audience made sounds of agreement. "I understand, Commander," Hana said, connecting her data tablet to the hall's display system. "I hope to change that skepticism today." She took a breath and looked out at the crowd. Somewhere in there she spotted Minho giving her a thumbs up. "Professor Vextil asked me why I brought an animal to this academic discussion. My answer was simple: to prove you're not Apex anything." The murmuring started immediately, but Hana pressed on. "With your permission, Professor, I'd like to begin." Vextil gestured for her to continue. "This is Baram," Hana said, and the dog's image appeared on the holographic display, along with his vital statistics. "He's a Siberian Husky, a breed of domestic dog from Earth. I know he doesn't look impressive compared to the predators you're used to seeing. He weighs only 60 pounds. His bite force is about 320 pounds per square inch. His top speed is about 28 miles per hour. By every metric you showed last week, he should be an inferior predator." "Then why is he here?" someone called from the back row. "Because those metrics are incomplete," Hana said. "Let me show you what I mean." She pulled up her first data set. "Baram represents approximately 40,000 years of partnership between humans and his species." Notice I said partnership, not domestication. "There is a difference?" Professor Vextil asked. "A crucial one." Hana called up genetic comparison charts. Domestication usually implies subjugation, breeding an animal to be dependent and submissive. But dogs and humans evolved together through mutual benefit. 40,000 years ago, wolves and early humans were competing apex predators. Instead of fighting to extinction, both species recognized an advantage in cooperation. She demonstrated a simple command. "Baram, sit." The dog sat immediately, his eyes fixed on her. "Stay." Baram remained perfectly still, even when Hana walked across the presentation area. "Come." He trotted to her side and sat again without needing to be told. "This looks like obedience," a Kreshti professor said from the front row. "This proves he is subordinate to you." "It looks like obedience," Hana agreed, "but watch his body language. His tail is up, his ears are forward, his posture is confident. He's not obeying because he's afraid or submissive. He's cooperating because he chooses to. Because we're a team." She pulled up historical footage she had requested from Earth archives. The display showed ancient humans and dogs hunting together on Earth's grasslands. "Pursuit hunting," she explained. Neither species could catch fast prey alone efficiently. But together, humans provided the strategic planning, the tools, and the endurance. Dogs provided the superior senses, the speed for short bursts and the ability to track by scent. Combined, they became an unstoppable hunting force. "Interesting history," Commander Thex said. "But how does this make humans apex predators now?" "Because it demonstrates a capability that no other species in this galaxy has shown," Hana replied. "Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They recruit other apex predators to adapt with them." She changed the display to show various human-animal partnerships throughout history. Dogs, horses, falcons, even large cats. Humans have brought predators into their social structures, creating multi-species families. "Families?" Professor Vextil tilted his crystalline head. "You consider this animal family?" "Watch," Hana said. She nodded to Minho, who had positioned himself as planned on the other side of the room. He walked toward Hana with exaggerated aggressive body language, raising his voice. "You think you can challenge the Korathi? You think your stupid animal proves anything?" The transformation in Baram was instant and dramatic. His relaxed posture vanished. His ears went back flat against his head. His lips pulled back to show teeth that suddenly looked much more dangerous. A sound came from his throat that made several beings in the front row flinch back, their translator devices struggling to find equivalent words. Threatening, protective, warning, and dangerous all flashed on Hana's tablet. Mino stopped walking, playing his role perfectly. He took a step back. "Barum, easy," Hana said softly, and the dog relaxed immediately, though his eyes never left Minho. "Good boy." The hall was silent. Hana let that silence stretch for a moment before continuing. "What you just saw was pack behavior. Barum considers me part of his family. When he perceived a threat to his pack, his entire demeanor changed. That friendly animal you all dismissed became a threat responder in under a second." She pulled up new data. "Now let's talk about endurance. The Kurathi are fast and strong, excellent for burst hunting, but humans and dogs evolved for persistence hunting. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating and panting. We can maintain pursuit for hours, even days. There is no predator in the galaxy that can match this endurance combination." The holographic display showed thermal comparisons. Most predators overheat during extended activity. Humans and dogs have specialized cooling systems that allow continued exertion. On Earth, humans used to hunt prey by literally following them until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They didn't need to be faster or stronger. They just needed to be more persistent. "This is all fascinating," Commander Thex said, and he actually sounded like he meant it, but I fail to see how this makes humans superior to Kurathi as apex predators. "Because you're measuring the wrong things," Hana said. "You measure individual capability, strength, speed, reaction time. But the true measure of an apex predator isn't individual power, it's ecosystem impact." She pulled up her final major data set. Humans didn't become Earth's apex predator by being the strongest. They became apex predators by forming alliances, by bringing other predators into their social structure, by using tools and strategy and cooperation. They built packs across species boundaries. She gestured to Barum. "This dog will fight for me. He'll track for me. He'll warn me of dangers I can't detect with my limited human senses. And in return, I provide food, shelter, medical care, and companionship. It's not subjugation. It's genuine partnership built on 40,000 years of mutual evolution." "And you believe this makes humans more dangerous than Kurathi?" Professor Vextil asked. "I believe it makes humans fundamentally different from any species in the Galactic Union," Hana replied. "The Kurathi are impressive individual predators, but humans are ecosystem engineers who turn competitors into family. We don't just adapt to our environment. We recruit our environment to adapt with us." She called up one more image. A human family with their dogs, all of them together. The dogs clearly protective and the humans clearly caring. This is what you're not measuring in your apex predator assessments. Social complexity, cross-species loyalty, the ability to form genuine bonds with other predatory species. The Kurathi hunt alone or in small groups of their own kind. Humans hunt in mixed species packs that span generations. Commander Thex stood up, his massive crystalline form imposing even from across the room. "You are saying that humans weaponize friendship?" The way he said it made Hana pause. She hadn't thought of it that way, but he wasn't entirely wrong. "I'm saying that humans build families, Commander. And families protect each other." "Demonstrate," he said simply. Hana understood what he wanted. She looked at Barum and made a decision. "Barum, guard." The dog immediately moved to a position slightly in front of her, his body alert. Hana nodded to a boredom student in the third row. "Would you mind standing and taking a step toward me?" "Just one step." The boredom, massive and tank-like, stood slowly. He took a single step down from his row. Barum's posture shifted, his focus locked on the potential threat. He didn't attack, didn't make a sound, but every being in that room could see the readiness in his body. "That's enough, thank you," Hana said. The boredom sat back down. "Barum, release." The dog relaxed and looked back at Hana, tail wagging slightly as if asking if he had done well. "Good boy," she said, and she meant it. Professor Vextil was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Miss Lee, your dog has been bred for this behavior, yes? This is not natural?" "The specific behaviors are enhanced through selective breeding," Hana admitted. "But the capacity for cross-species cooperation? That's natural. It emerged 40,000 years ago when wolves and humans first chose to hunt together. Everything since then has been refinement of that original partnership. She looked out at the audience. Some of them looked thoughtful. Others still seemed skeptical. But nobody was laughing anymore. I'm not saying humans are stronger than Kurathi, Hana said. I'm not saying we're faster or tougher. What I'm saying is that the definition of apex predator you're using is incomplete. An apex predator isn't just about individual capability. It's about ecological dominance. And humans achieved ecological dominance on Earth, not through physical superiority, but through an unprecedented ability to form partnerships across species lines. She paused, then added, that's what makes us dangerous. Not our teeth or our claws or our armor. Our ability to look at another predator and say, let's be family instead of enemies. That's something no other species in this room has demonstrated. The hall remained silent for several long seconds. Then Commander Thex began to make a sound like crystals chiming together. Hana's translator took a moment to process it. Applause. Slowly, other beings in the room joined in, their various forms of approval creating a strange symphony of alien appreciation. Not everyone participated, but enough did that Hana felt her heart swell with hope. Maybe they were starting to understand. Maybe Earth wasn't going to be dismissed anymore. Professor Vextil stepped forward. Miss Lee, he said, I believe we need to discuss your findings in much greater detail. This presentation has raised significant questions about our understanding of apex predator evolution. Hana allowed herself a small smile. I would be happy to continue this discussion, Professor. Beside her, Barum sat patiently, unaware that he had just changed how an entire galaxy viewed humanity. He was just a good dog, doing what his ancestors had done for 40,000 years, standing beside his human ready to face whatever came next together. The applause faded, but the energy in the lecture hall remained intense. Hana could see aliens leaning forward in their seats, their various appendages gesturing as they discussed what they had just witnessed. She had expected questions, but what happened next caught her completely off guard. Professor Vextil raised one crystalline hand, and the room fell silent again. Miss Lee, your demonstration was compelling. However, I have a significant counter-argument. His faceted eyes fixed on her. You claim that humans formed partnerships with other predators. But does domestication not actually prove human weakness? That your species needed to subjugate other animals in order to survive? The Kurathi need no such assistance. We hunt and fight alone, as true apex predators should. Several beings in the audience made sounds of agreement. Hana noticed that most of them were Kurathi, or species that valued individual strength. She had anticipated this response. In fact, she had been counting on it. I understand your perspective, Professor, Hana said calmly, and you're not alone in that interpretation. When humans first made contact with the Galactic Union, many species assumed the same thing. They saw our dogs and horses and thought we were weak, needing animals to do our work for us. She paused, but that assumption is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually happened. She pulled up a new data set on the holographic display. These are genetic markers showing the evolution of dogs from wolves. Notice the timeline. The partnership didn't begin with humans capturing and breeding wolves. It began with wolves choosing to approach human camps. The display showed archaeological evidence. Wolf remains found near ancient human settlements, showing no signs of captivity or force. The current scientific consensus is that the wolves who became dogs chose to associate with humans. They saw an opportunity. Humans were using tools and fire to hunt and process meat. Wolves that were less afraid of humans could scavenge the remains. Over time, the boldest wolves got closer, and humans realized these wolves could warn them of danger, help them track prey, and provide warmth during cold nights. So the wolves were scavengers, a Kreshti professor said. That proves they were subordinate. Initially, yes, Hana agreed. But watch what happens next. She advanced the timeline, showing how human and canine evolution began to intertwine. Humans started actively selecting which wolves they allowed near their camps. They favored the ones who were helpful, social, and communicative. But here's the crucial part. The wolves were doing the same thing. They favored humans who provided food, protection, and companionship. She let that sink in before continuing. This was mutual selection. Both species were choosing each other. Over thousands of generations, wolves became dogs, but humans also changed. We developed specific facial muscles that allow us to communicate better with dogs. Our brains adapted to read canine body language. Both species evolved to understand each other better. Commander Thek stood up again. His presence was commanding, and the room gave him immediate attention. Miss Lee, you are describing a symbiotic relationship, but you still have not addressed the fundamental question. Does this partnership exist because humans were inadequate as solo predators? Hana smiled. This was exactly where she wanted the conversation to go. Commander, let me answer your question with another question. The Karathi are widely recognized as the galaxy's premier military force. Your people have protected the Galactic Union for 3 centuries. You're faster, stronger, and more resilient than most species. But tell me, do Karathi soldiers ever work in teams? The commander's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. Of course we work in teams. No military force operates entirely alone. Exactly, Hana said, because even the most powerful individual is more effective with allies. The Karathi recognized this. You form tactical units. You coordinate strategies. You trust your fellow soldiers to watch your back. She gestured to Baram. Humans simply took that concept and applied it across species boundaries. We didn't do it because we were weak. We did it because we were smart enough to recognize that partnership makes everyone stronger. She pulled up comparison data. Let me show you something that might change your perspective. These are success rates for various hunting strategies across multiple Earth predators. The display showed statistics for lions, wolves, tigers, bears, and humans. Notice that even the most powerful solo predators have relatively low success rates. A tiger hunting alone succeeds about 10% of the time. Lions hunting in pride succeed about 30% of the time. She highlighted the human statistics. Early humans with dog partners had success rates exceeding 60%. Not because the dogs did the hunting for them, but because the partnership combined the strengths of both species while minimizing their weaknesses. That is impressive, Professor Vextil admitted, but it still suggests humans needed assistance. Professor, with respect, you're looking at this backward, Hana said. The ability to form cross-species partnerships isn't a weakness. It's an advanced social capability that requires sophisticated communication, empathy, and strategic thinking. Most species can't do it at all. She pulled up data about the Galactic Union. In 300 years of galactic civilization, how many species have successfully integrated members of other species into their family units, not as servants or pets, but as genuine family members? The room was quiet. Hana knew the answer because she had researched it thoroughly. 0. Not a single species in the Union has demonstrated the capacity for cross-species family bonds. Some species work together. Some have symbiotic relationships with non-sapient organisms, but humans are the only species that looks at a completely different predator and says, "You're family now." A small Voss in an environmental suit spoke up, its translator making its voice sound distant. But humans also have partnerships with non-predators, yes? I have read about horses and livestock. Absolutely correct, Hana said. Horses, cattle, chickens, even insects like bees. Humans form partnerships across the entire spectrum of animal types. We didn't just recruit other predators. We recruited herbivores to provide transportation and food, birds to control pests, insects to pollinate crops. We essentially built a multi-species civilization on Earth long before we had technology. She changed the display to show images of human farms, ranches, and settlements. This is ecosystem engineering on a massive scale. Humans didn't just adapt to Earth's environment. They transformed it, bringing dozens of species into cooperative relationships. That's not weakness, Commander. That's unprecedented biological and social complexity. Commander Thex was silent for a long moment, his crystalline body absolutely still. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that made everyone listen. You are suggesting that humans weaponize cooperation itself. The way he phrased it sent a chill through Hana, but she nodded. If you want to put it in military terms, yes. Humans have a natural ability to form alliances that other species struggle to match. We don't just fight alongside our allies. We fight for them, and they fight for us. She gestured to Baram, who was sitting calmly despite all the attention. This dog would die protecting me. Not because he's programmed or forced to, but because I'm his pack. That's the bond humans form. And we don't just form it with dogs. Throughout our history, we've had soldiers who fought alongside horses they considered brothers. Messengers who trusted birds with their lives. Farmers who mourned cattle like family members. That sounds like emotional weakness, a Borduum student said from the back. Caring about animals, does it? Hana challenged. Or is it a form of strength that your species hasn't considered? When a Korathi soldier fights, he fights for duty, honor, and perhaps his fellow Korathi. When a human soldier fights alongside his dog, he's fighting for family. Which motivation do you think is more powerful? The room erupted in discussion. Aliens argued with each other in a dozen different languages, their translators struggling to keep up. Hana watched Professor Vextil carefully. The crystalline professor was having an intense discussion with Commander Thex and the other military observers. Finally, Professor Vextil raised his hand for silence again. Miss Lee, I find myself reconsidering certain assumptions. However, I have one more significant question. He paused. What you describe as cooperation between a sapient species and non-sapient animals. Impressive, certainly. But how does this translate to relationships with other sapient species? The Galactic Union requires cooperation between intelligent beings. Can humans extend this partnership capability to species like the Korathi? It was the perfect setup for what Hana wanted to say next. Professor, humans have been doing exactly that for our entire history. Before we had nations, we had tribes. Those tribes spoke different languages, had different customs, sometimes even looked different from each other. And yes, we fought sometimes. But we also formed alliances, made families, and built civilizations together. She pulled up historical data from Earth. Humans spent thousands of years learning to cooperate across cultural boundaries. We made mistakes, terrible ones sometimes, but we learned. By the time we reached space, we had already created a global civilization, spanning hundreds of ethnicities, languages, and cultures. We had already proven we could make family out of difference. Minho, who had been standing quietly to the side, spoke up for the first time. If I may add something. He waited for Professor Vextil's nod before continuing. Hana and I are both Korean ethnically, but we're from different colony worlds. We were strangers 6 months ago. Now I'd trust her with my life. That's what humans do. We form bonds quickly and deeply, and those bonds matter to us. Even with non-humans? Commander Thex asked. Especially with non-humans, Hana said. That's the whole point of what I'm showing you. If humans can form family bonds with dogs, horses, and birds, why not with Korathi, Kreshti, or Voss? The capacity is there. We just need the opportunity and the willingness from both sides. She looked directly at the commander. You said humans weaponize cooperation. Maybe that's true. But consider what that means for the Galactic Union. Every species here brings something unique. The Korathi bring physical prowess and military expertise. The Kreshti bring multitasking and dexterity. The Boredom bring resilience and strength. Humans bring the ability to tie all of that together into something greater than the sum of its parts. You believe humans could integrate other species into their social structure the way they did with dogs? Professor Vextil asked, and for the first time he sounded genuinely curious rather than skeptical. I believe we already are, Hana said. I consider Minho family and we share DNA. But I've been here 6 months and I'm starting to think of some of my alien classmates as friends. Give it time. Give it mutual respect and cooperation, and yes, I think humans could extend family bonds across species lines with sapient beings too. She knelt down next to Baram and put her arm around him. The dog leaned into her, completely trusting. This is what 40,000 years of partnership looks like. Imagine what we could build with the Galactic Union in 400 years. Or 4,000. Not humans dominating other species, but genuine multi-species families working together toward common goals. The lecture hall was absolutely silent. Hana could see gears turning in alien minds, species that had never considered cooperation in those terms suddenly imagining possibilities. Commander Thex finally spoke, his voice thoughtful. This changes certain military calculations. If humans can form these bonds with other species, including my own people, it means human soldiers won't just fight alongside Korathi units. They would fight for them, and we would expect the same in return, Hana said firmly. Partnership goes both ways, Commander. Family protects family. Professor Vextil looked at Baram for a long moment. Then he looked at Hana. Miss Lee, he said slowly, I believe you have proven your point, and you have given all of us much to think about. Hana let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank you, Professor. No, Vextil said. Thank you. This is why we have exchange programs, to learn from each other, Today you taught us something profound about your species, and perhaps about the nature of strength itself. The applause that followed was genuine, widespread, and carried none of the mockery from before. As beings filed out of the lecture hall, many of them stopped to look at Bahram with new understanding in their eyes. The Karathi were starting to understand what made humans special, and that understanding Hana knew would change everything. The lecture hall had mostly emptied, but Commander Thex remained along with Professor Vextil and several senior faculty members. They had gathered in a small group near the front, their various forms creating an unusual collection of alien shapes and sizes. Hana had expected to pack up and leave, but the commander had asked her to stay. Now she stood with Bahram at her side, wondering what would come next. "Miss Lee," Commander Thex said, his crystalline voice somehow gentler than before. "I have a request. Would you be willing to participate in a simulation? I want to test your theories in a practical scenario." Hana's heart rate picked up. "What kind of simulation?" "A hunting scenario," the commander replied. 3 Karathi hunters versus 3 human dog teams. Virtual environment, no real danger, but accurate physical modeling. I want to see how your partnership translates to practical application. Professor Vextil added, "This would be purely academic, of course. To better understand the concepts you've presented." Hana looked down at Bahram. The dog gazed back at her calmly, trusting whatever decision she made. "I'm willing," she said, "but I'll need 2 more humans and 2 more dogs. Minho can be 1, but we'll need to bring another team member from Earth." "That can be arranged," Commander Thex said. "We have fast transport for academic purposes." "How long would you need?" 3 days to bring someone here and practice coordination, Hana estimated. "We need to work as a team just like the Karathi would." "Acceptable. We will prepare the simulation environment." The commander paused, then added something that surprised Hana. "I find myself hoping you succeed. Miss Lee, what you described today challenges assumptions the Karathi have held for centuries. But if you are correct, it could change how we approach cooperation within the Union." Over the next 3 days, the station buzzed with gossip about the upcoming simulation. Someone had leaked the details, and now everyone knew that the human girl who brought a dog was going to face off against Karathi hunters in a virtual environment. The betting pools had started up again, though Hana noticed the odds were more even this time. A transport arrived with Hana's requested team member, Park Jisoo, a dog handler from Earth's colonial security forces. She brought with her a German shepherd named Hanul and a Belgian Malinois named Garam. Both dogs were experienced working animals, trained for search, protection, and coordination with human partners. "You really stirred things up," Jisoo said when they met in the station's training facility. She was a few years older than Hana, with the confident bearing of someone who had worked with dogs her entire adult life. "The whole Union is watching this simulation. No pressure or anything." "Yeah, I might have overreached a little," Hana admitted. "But we can do this. We just need to show them what we already know, that working together makes us stronger." They spent the next 2 days practicing. The simulation environment would be a wilderness area similar to Earth terrain, designed to test tracking, coordination, and strategic thinking. The objective was simple: locate and retrieve a marker hidden somewhere in the environment. First team to bring it back to the starting point won. Minho, despite having no formal dog training, proved surprisingly capable with Hanul. The German shepherd seemed to sense his nervousness and responded with patient cooperation. Jisoo worked with Garam, and Hana continued partnering with Bahram. They practiced communication, developed hand signals that worked in addition to verbal commands, and learned to read each other's positions and intentions. "Remember," Jisoo said during their final practice session, "the dogs are faster and have better senses. We're the strategists. We need to think several steps ahead and trust them to execute." On the day of the simulation, the same lecture hall was packed again, but this time the energy was different. People weren't here to laugh. They were here to learn. The holographic display had been configured to show the simulation environment from multiple angles, allowing the audience to watch both teams simultaneously. Commander Thex introduced the Karathi team, 3 experienced hunters, all military trained, all veterans of actual combat situations. They stood together, their crystalline bodies gleaming under the lights, radiating confidence and power. Each one was taller and more physically imposing than any of the humans. "The rules are simple," the commander explained. Both teams will enter the same virtual environment from different starting points. Somewhere within a 5-mile radius is a marker. First team to retrieve it and return to their starting point wins. The environment includes varied terrain, water features, and simulated wildlife. All physical capabilities are modeled accurately. The teams entered their respective simulation pods. Hana found herself in a virtual forest that looked remarkably like the wilderness areas near her childhood colony. Beside her were Minho, Jisoo, and their 3 dogs. All of them appeared as accurate digital representations, and when Hana knelt to check on Baram, the dog felt real under her hands. "Ready?" Jisoo asked. "Ready," Hana confirmed. Minho nodded his agreement. The simulation began. The Karathi team immediately took off at a sprint. Through the shared display, Hana could see them moving through the forest with incredible speed and power. They spread out in a search pattern, their superior senses scanning for the marker. It was impressive to watch. "Don't try to match their speed," Hana said to her team. "That's not our advantage. Jisoo, have Garam and Hanul start searching for a scent trail. Baram and I will scout ahead and look for signs. Minho, your command center. Keep track of where we've been and where the Karathi are going." They moved methodically. The dogs ranged ahead, noses to the ground, while the humans followed and observed. Within 15 minutes, Garam alerted on something. Jisoo called the team over. "He's found a trail," she said. "Could be simulated wildlife, could be related to the marker. What do you think?" Hana examined the ground. In the real world, she wouldn't have seen anything, but her years of experience told her how to look. The trail is fresh and purposeful, not random animal movement. "I think the simulation designers left us a way to track the marker. Follow it." The Karathi, meanwhile, had covered twice as much ground, but they were searching in an expanding circle pattern. Efficient for their capabilities, but also predictable. The human team followed the trail that Garam had found, moving slower but with clear direction. 20 minutes into the simulation, they reached a river. The trail disappeared into the water. "They expected us to lose it here," Minho said. "The Karathi could probably jump this river or wade through it without much trouble. But we have dogs," Jisoo said with a smile. "Garam, Hanul, search." The 2 dogs split up, one going upstream and one going downstream, searching for where the trail emerged from the water. Baram stayed with Hana, alert and ready. It took 5 minutes, but Hanul found where the trail continued on the other side, about 30 yards downstream from where they had lost it. "Good girl," Minho praised, and Hanul's tail wagged. The team crossed at a shallow point and continued following the trail. Through the shared display visible to the audience, the contrast was clear. The Karathi were faster, stronger, and covered more ground. But they were essentially brute-forcing the search, checking every possible location. The human team was slower but more targeted, following a specific lead. 40 minutes into the simulation, both teams spotted the marker at almost the same time. It was placed at the top of a rocky outcropping, clearly visible but difficult to reach. The Karathi were closer, and they immediately began climbing. Their strength and agility made the climb look easy. "We can't beat them in a straight race," Hana said quickly. "But we don't have to." "Jisoo, can Garam climb that?" "Not as fast as they can," Jisoo admitted. "Then we don't climb. Minho, you're our fastest runner. When they grab the marker, they'll head straight back to their start point. We know where that is from the briefing. Can we intercept them?" Minho pulled up a mental map of the terrain. "If we cut through the valley instead of going back the way we came, maybe. But they're faster than us." "They're faster in a sprint," Hana agreed. "But we have endurance. And we have surprise. Let's go." The human team left before the Karathi even reached the marker. They moved quickly but sustainably through the valley, the dogs ranging ahead to warn of obstacles. Behind them, the Karathi grabbed the marker and began their descent. They were celebrating, assuming they had won. The human team reached the intercept point and set up an ambush. It wasn't about fighting, it was about disruption and strategy. When the Karathi came through, running at full speed, the dogs suddenly emerged from concealment, barking and moving in coordinated patterns that forced the Karathi to slow down and change direction. In the confusion, Jisoo used a simulated tool, a rope she had picked up from the starting equipment, to create a trip line between 2 trees. The lead Karathi, moving too fast to adjust, hit the line and fell. The marker tumbled from his hands. Minho dove for it, grabbed it, and threw it to Hana. She caught it and immediately took off running with Baram at her side. But she wasn't running toward the human starting point, she was running at an angle, drawing the Karathi away from Jisoo and Minho. Go, she shouted. Take the dogs and head for the finish. It was a sacrifice play. The Kurathi would catch her, she was slower, and they were angry now. But while they chased her, the rest of her team could complete the objective. The Kurathi took the bait. All three of them pursued Hana, leaving Minho and Jisoo with a clear path. But Hana had one more trick. As the Kurathi closed in, she threw the marker back to Minho, who had circled around using Garam to track Hana's position. The Kurathi realized too late that they had been outmaneuvered. By the time they changed direction again, Minho and Jisoo were too close to the starting point. The dogs got there first, followed seconds later by the two humans. The simulation ended with the human team winning by less than 30 seconds. The lecture hall erupted in noise. Some beings were cheering, others were arguing about the tactics, but everyone was engaged and animated. Hana emerged from her simulation pod to find Commander Thex waiting for her. That was not a strength victory, he said slowly. No, sir, Hana agreed. It was a strategy victory. We couldn't beat you in speed or power, so we didn't try. We used teamwork, communication, and tactics instead. The commander looked at the dogs, who were all panting happily and receiving praise from their humans. Your animals disrupted our formation. Not through force, but through coordination and surprise. Yes, sir. They trusted us to have a plan, and we trusted them to execute their part. Professor Vextil had joined them along with most of the xenobiology faculty. Miss Lee, this was extraordinary. You didn't just prove that human-dog teams can be effective, you demonstrated a completely different approach to problem solving. The Kurathi used their superior capabilities in a straightforward manner. Your team used cooperation, sacrifice, and strategy to overcome a physical disadvantage. One of the senior faculty members, an elderly Kreshti, spoke up. I have been teaching xenobiology for 30 years. This is the first time I have truly understood what makes humans unique. You are not apex predators in the traditional sense. You are social engineers who build teams that transcend individual limitations. Commander Thex was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. Miss Lee, I would like to request a formal meeting with Earth's diplomatic representatives. The Kurathi Defense Forces are interested in exploring cooperative training programs with human-dog teams. If your species can teach us to build these kinds of partnerships, it would revolutionize our military doctrine. Hana felt a surge of pride, not just for herself, but for humanity. I'm just a student, Commander, but I'm sure Earth would be very interested in that conversation. Over the following weeks, word of the simulation spread throughout the Galactic Union. The video was downloaded millions of times. Analysis programs broke down every decision, every tactic, every moment of coordination between humans and dogs. The Galactic Academy updated its xenobiology curriculum to include a section on human-animal partnerships, with Hana serving as a guest lecturer. Professor Vextil formally requested permission to visit Earth and study the development of human-animal cooperation firsthand. His request was approved, and he became one of the first Kurathi to spend extended time on humanity's homeworld. More significantly, the Galactic Council's Science Directorate reached out to Earth's government with an unprecedented proposal. They wanted to study whether the cooperative frameworks that humans had developed with animals could be adapted for interspecies cooperation within the Union. Could humans teach other species to build the kinds of bonds that made human-dog teams so effective? Hana received a personal message from the Directorate, inviting her to join a newly formed research team that would explore these questions. She sat in her quarters with Baram's head resting on her lap, reading the message for the third time. What do you think, boy? She asked. Should we do it? Baram looked up at her with those blue eyes full of trust and affection. His tail thumped once against the floor. Minho, reading over her shoulder, laughed. I think that's a yes. Yeah, Hana said, scratching behind Baram's ears. I think it is. She looked out the window of their quarters. Earth hung in the distance, that beautiful blue marble where humans had learned an important lesson thousands of years ago. Strength wasn't just about physical power or individual capability. True strength came from the bonds you built, the family you created, the partnerships you forged. Humans had turned wolves into dogs, turned competitors into companions. They had built multi-species families and learned to trust across fundamental biological boundaries. Now they had the chance to do the same thing on a galactic scale, to teach other species that cooperation wasn't weakness, but the highest form of strength. In the lecture hall, Professor Vextil had asked her why she brought an animal. Her answer had been simple: to prove they weren't apex anything. But the truth was deeper than that. She had brought Barum to show that humans had discovered something more powerful than being apex predators. They had discovered how to make family out of strangers, how to build teams out of differences, how to turn competition into cooperation. That was humanity's real superpower. Not their physical capabilities or their technology, but their endless capacity for partnership, and now the galaxy was ready to learn. Hana typed her acceptance of the research position, Baram still resting peacefully beside her. Outside the window, ships moved between stations, carrying beings from dozens of species, all trying to build a better future together. Maybe humans could help with that. Maybe the lessons learned over 40,000 years of partnership with dogs could translate to a galaxy, learning to work together. Maybe humanity's greatest contribution to the Galactic Union wouldn't be technology or military might, but simply showing everyone how to be family. Barum made a contented sound and closed his eyes, secure in the knowledge that his human was nearby. In that simple gesture of trust, 400,000 centuries of partnership found expression, and the galaxy was finally starting to understand what it meant. The apex predator of Earth hadn't conquered through strength. They had won through friendship. And that, Hana knew, was the lesson the universe needed to learn.